Welcome to my channel and welcome to part 2 of this video where I'm testing this antenna that I thought might be fake. It actually is an antenna, not a dummy load, as I was wondering in the first video. And what I've done is I had a suspicion that the coax was the problem. So what I did was I chopped off the coax. I still haven't unraveled this to see how long it is. Still guessing it might be 3 meters, but who knows. I may in another episode unravel it and measure it to measure the loss on this coax because it claims to be RG174 and it wouldn't be any good at gigahertz frequencies anyway. But there we are. So what I did was I cut it off and just left a short stub of that coax still connected to the center of the antenna because I can't get in there very easily. It's all hot glued together. I don't know how they connected the coax to the elements anyway because these are made of aluminium. It looks like, feels like aluminium. So I don't know how they've managed to make the connection from the copper. It's actually got copper inner and copper braid, this coax, unlike some of the USB cables that use an aluminium braid, which is not solderable. So I don't know how they've managed to solder this to the elements. Maybe they just shoved it there and hot glued it because they've used double-sided sticky tape here to hold these spaces on, and then just only used one side of the double-sided sticky tape, but it provides some padding maybe. So it's an interesting construction. I've just soldered a N-type socket on the end of that coax there, tried to keep the connections as short as possible, which of course is not easy, so that'll have all kinds of strange artifacts in the return loss or SWR anyway. It's not a good connection at all, not coaxial. Doesn't preserve the impedance of the cable, which is supposed to be 50 ohms, probably isn't anyway. So it's all a bit Heath Robinson, but I just wanted to prove my theory that the long cable is the problem with this antenna. And now you can see the SWR curve is completely different. This is from 0 to 1.5 gigahertz. Previously it just went down and was very close. It was around 1.5 to 1 all the way up with little ripples. And again, I think the ripples were due to the coax, but I didn't believe it. That's where the dummy load effect was coming from. It was just the loss in this coax in two directions, of course. You have to add the insertion loss, or double the insertion loss, because it's going in two directions, any reflections from the antenna. So it was making it look like a perfect match, which it wasn't really. So now we're getting a truer representation of how the matching looks on this biconical antenna. And it's not exactly what I wanted to see, but there it is. It looks like it has the best match here, which is at about 700 megahertz. And what do they claim it works on? 698 to 2.7 gigahertz. So 698 megahertz, there's 700. So yeah, it's a good match down there. And then the frequency that I'm interested in, which is 870 megahertz, the SWR is about 3 to 1, which is a bit high. It's okay for receive, just for listening around, but it's not ideal for transmitting. So it's about 3 to 1. And then it goes on up to nasty, just up there. And at 1 gigahertz roughly, there's a bit of a nicer match as well. So it's, yeah, it's not ideal, but I didn't expect it to be ideal. I didn't even think it would work at all. So at the Meshtastic frequencies, the SWR is 3 to 1, and then it goes on up to unusable towards 1.5 gigahertz. I don't know what it's like at higher frequencies because my VNA doesn't go any higher, but I'm not really interested. This is sold as an LTE antenna, so it's meant for mobile phone use, for base station, well, for repeaters, and perhaps outdoor base station equipment. What I wanted to do was, when I assumed it was two antennas in here, was to take one out, leave the one that works at 868 megahertz, and then put a little Meshtastic board like this one in there. Maybe little Heltec would fit there with a battery to make a Meshtastic node that's completely self-contained. I've just thought of something, and that is, what happens if you put the radome, or whatever you want to call it, the plastic cover, back on the antenna? Because this is going to have a dielectric constant, which is not the same as air, so it's going to affect the resonance of the antenna, which is not resonant, but it's got some artifacts. I'm just wondering what happens. So let's try that. I haven't tried this before, so I'm going to slip this cover over, the waterproof cover, and see what the SWR does. Before I do that, in case it falls over, because it's lost some of its support, I snipped off, this is the second cable that was connected in parallel at the top. I've cut that off because I don't want a parallel cable connected up there. adding capacitance. And what I'm going to do, just for the enjoyment of the listener and viewers, is you get to share part of the fun, and I'm going to, in a strange way, cut this off because it's no longer necessary. Make sure I'm cutting the right one. I've never defused a bomb and I don't ever want to have to, but you know. So there we are, cut the wire off, the unwanted piece of coax. And let's slip the cover over and see what happens. The other end of the coax I just snipped off, I did cut as close as I could to the center up here and make sure it wasn't short-circuiting the other coax. So it's still a bit of an extra coaxial stub capacitor up there that I can't get rid of, but anyway. So I'm going to slip this on. Let's see what happens. I'm looking at the VNA. Oh, interesting. It doesn't change too much. Now I see why they use double-sided tape, because it's got nice foamy padding, and it doesn't really change things very much. My hand makes obviously a difference, which is an indication that the antenna is actually working as an antenna, because if you move your hand around and the SWR changes, that means the antenna is interacting with whatever's around it in free space. That was not the case before. I didn't show that, but how it was before with the very long cables, when I put my hand there, nothing changed. It just stayed as a perfect match, unbelievably, which made me think it was not an antenna in there, but now it is an antenna. You can see it's affected by what's around it. The SWR curve looks pretty much the same as it did without the cover, so that's a good sign. At least the plastic cover is fairly transparent at these frequencies and not affecting the antenna very much at all in terms of SWR. There's one other thing that made me think it was fake, and that was that they give you a free spanner. And I thought, well, the real antenna, or the better one I bought previously and tested, didn't have a spanner with it. This has a spanner, and the whole thing is much cheaper. Why is that? And then I realized when I put these U-bolts through the plate that comes with it, the mounting bracket all comes together. The holes were in the wrong places, so you had to bend the U-bolt to make it fit through the holes, and then it's very tough to do up the nuts with your fingers. The other one you could just do it up freely because the holes were in the right places, so that's why the spanner was provided, so that you could apply some torque to do up those nuts because the mounting holes are in the wrong place. Obviously that's why the spanner's there. Why else would they give you a free spanner? They also give you a free little coaxial stub to connect it to some kind of a router with a connector on that I don't know. Only one of those, and there are two cables, which is a clue, like you don't need the second cable really, it's just there for show. Anyway, I hope we're learning something about antennas here. I'm not trying to teach about antennas, but I do like experimenting with them. I haven't done it for a very long time, and with the modern test equipment like this, it's a lot more fun because you can immediately see what happens when you make changes. So that was part 2 of this Is It a Fake? And it's not a fake anymore, it's a real antenna with a very sad coaxial cable connected. I think I'm going to measure this anyway. I'm inquisitive to know what this cable is, how it performs. So thank you for watching. Good luck with your own experimentation. Please make comments and ask questions in the comments section, and let's see what I do next.